All right, Wayne Allen Root, great to be back with Bill O'Reilly. I've been off for a couple weeks, but we are back in the saddle again. Hey, Bill, how are you?
Good, Wayne. Thanks for having me in.
Very rough weekend. I thought things were going great for Trump and the Republican Party, and all looked smooth sailing for 2020. And, of course, a massive bump in the road, meaning two terrible mass shootings, and the media jumps all over it, blames President Trump. And, look, I don't know what a president could do about mentally ill people. I don't see how this is any one party's fault. I don't see how it's President Trump's fault. Well, how do you see it all?
Well, I wrote a message of the day on BillO'Reilly.com, and I want to get the stats here. You know that this mass killing thing is across the board. It doesn't have anything to do with who's president. So under Barack Obama, 8 years, 24 mass shootings in 8 years, 3 a year, all right, 236 dead and 257 injured. The point of my message of the day was that people who try to capitalize on this kind of horror should be abhorred, like Beto O'Rourke and CNN. People who try to use death to advance themselves or their agenda are really to be condemned. Now, I have been a critic of harsh rhetoric from the president and from the media. They're both at fault. And of course, the media started it. And Donald Trump feels he has to reply in a personal way because of the attacks on him and the effort to remove him from the Oval Office. I get the big picture there, but I'm hoping that people gonna bring it down now, all right? Because hatred is in the country, it's here, and we gotta tamp it down as much as we can.
But of course, you agree, I assume, as I do, that being against illegal immigration and wanting a wall so bad people don't come in the country and so your border has some control has nothing to do with some crazy person wanting to kill people because of the color of their skin. I don't see the correlation at all. The people who did it are nuts.
Yes, they're maniacs. And I think that society has to understand that maniacs are now emboldened by the machines, by the internet, because they can talk to other maniacs and they can access the most hateful stuff and rationalize their destruction in their own minds. Look, these people want to die. Any mass killer wants to die. Instead of committing suicide, they take innocent people with them. That's the play. Now, with the internet and the most hateful, vile stuff on earth being available like that, these people are almost emboldened to commit these acts. It doesn't justify anything, it explains it. Now, people want immigration law enforced. They have nothing to do with any violence at all. Nothing. It's the same thing about Muslim terrorism. You want to be very careful with Muslims? Okay, you have nothing to do with violence. That's a legitimate public safety point of view.
All right, let's talk about the media's attempt to bury the narrative that this is not political, that both sides have their problems, that you've got the shooter in, the first shooter in El Paso, Texas, was of the political ideology that we want to stop Hispanics from coming in the country. No one wants to kill them, but he was a nutcase. But the one in Dayton, Ohio, was of the narrative that he was a socialist, he was a progressive, he was a fan of Elizabeth Warren. I don't see any of that second part in the media. I only hear the drumbeat that it's all Trump's fault and it's white extremism. Not a mention of the Elizabeth Warren fan, and no mention that earlier today it came out Rand Paul won't be back to the United States Senate until September because he's having surgery to have part of his lung removed because some progressive nut job chased him on his own lawn and hurt him and broke his ribs and they went into his lungs. I mean, there's a lot of violence on the left and the media only reports one side, right?
Yes, I have not been able to confirm the Dayton shooter was a socialist or a fan of Elizabeth Warren. I just want to tell you I haven't been able to confirm that. And I don't, as you know, Wayne, I don't take reports on the internet as fact. I don't. So I have not been able to confirm that. May well be true. Authorities are not saying that. As far as Rand Paul is concerned, obviously an underreported story. But here's the big story. If you want to look at violence, it cuts across all political spectrums. What's Antifa? What's that? It's an anarchistic left-wing group, and they commit violence everywhere they go. So you're right, is selective reporting, as always in this country, and there are nuts on both sides who will use ideology to justify hatred and violence.
Now, we didn't talk about this. I'm going to throw something in just off the top of my head because I've been thinking about it for the last hour. If we want to compromise to try and fight this kind of mass murder, and I don't think anything really helps because these guys got their guns legally, and even if they got them illegally, then a new law wouldn't help. But let's say we could compromise. I'm not a big fan of gun control. I'm not a big fan of registration nationwide. I'm not a big fan of red flag laws. But what if we went along with those? And in return, we got nationwide reciprocity. So someone with a CCW, a good guy with a gun, could always stop a bad guy with a gun, and we're allowed to carry them in any state. I could see horse trading and getting some sort of bill together that has both of those in it that gives something to the left and something to the right. Just your thoughts on that.
I can almost guarantee you there's going to be a bill, and I think President Trump will support the bill, to put a registry of people who buy certain firearms, not all firearms, but certain firearms, the heavy caliber stuff, to put that registry together, and the FBI would have storage responsibilities. Now, the reason they want to do that is they want the authorities, the federal authorities, want to know who has an assault weapon, who has heavy caliber machine, all right? I think that'll happen, and I think President Trump will sign it. As for banning certain weaponry, it could happen. I mean, you got to understand something. Donald Trump needs independent votes. So he can't be a hardliner on something that makes sense to most Americans. And I think most Americans are at the point now where they want some kind of control by the federal government over who has assault rifles.
Last but not least, some Republicans and President Trump have linked violent video games to mass shootings. That was something that was talked about a lot 20 years ago and 30 years ago. Where do you stand on that issue?
I think that violent video games can desensitize individuals to actual physical pain. Look, these assassins, these mass killers, live in a fantasy world, Wayne. You know that. Their world isn't the world that you and I or anybody watching us live in. All right? They create their own crazy fantasy world, that they're Rambo or something. All right? That they're going out in a blaze of glory or whatever crazy thing they conjure up. And again, they lose themselves in this violence. They get desensitized to human suffering and all that. And it's there at the click of a machine. So it is valid, but you can't censor in a free society what Americans can and can't see. So that's never going to resolve itself.
All right, tough issues, no easy answers, but we're trying our best. Bill O'Reilly, if you want more great insights, go to BillO'Reilly.com every day, 24 hours a day, BillO'Reilly.com. I'm Wayne Alaroot. Bill, thanks for coming on.
Sure, Wayne, anytime.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing news channel, now in 65 million homes. Get Newsmax TV on all the major cable systems or go to NewsmaxTV.com and click on the Find Newsmax tab to locate us. Remember, Newsmax TV, more real news for real people.